This is where we left it at the end of the last lecture. You have a start page. We have a tab or a page for the instance of a Micro810, and then we had the global variables, and then we were looking at the program variables for program 1. So I'm going to close both of those to get back to the 810. I'm also going to delete, and notice that I can delete because there is nothing in either one of those. So I could put in a single rung of logic in program 1, and to do that, of course, I would have to use some global variables in the rung or create some new local variables. Instead, I'm going to take this back to the way it was when we first created it. It is strictly a project, an instance of a Micro810 with no programs and nothing but global variables. No user-defined function blocks, no data types. Now we want to make contact with the actual controller. I see there's no connection path, so I'm going to go to set up connection path, and notice it comes up with a variety of things, and I see the Micro810, so I'll select that. It says double click to select path. See right there? Double click and close. Now I have a path. However, that doesn't mean that I can connect with it. Really, you have a choice of upload and download. And when you download, you have to build first. So up here we have build and download. If I click download without building, it's going to build and then download. So you can't skip the building process. So I'll click on build just to see if I get any messages, and it looks like it's happy. Actually, it's still working because this is all grayed out now, and it's coming up build 1 succeeded, 0 failed, up to date, 0 skipped. Now I'm going to select download, and it's busy. You can see things flickering. I'm not real fond of the lack of status during this time period. I really don't know what it's doing right now. I'm guessing that it's downloading simply because the cursor is flickering. So I clicked on download up here. It did a build, which has succeeded, and now it's come up and said the controller is in a remote run mode. Now there is no switch on this controller, so this mode change is all done directly from this dashboard. So I'm going to say yes to change it to remote program mode, and it's downloading. That'll take a short time. You can see the progress bar down here at the bottom. Downloading project file IDS 00103. Resources, downloading. Build started. Download succeeded. Download is complete. Change the controller to the remote run mode to execute controller project. And of course we have nothing in there. There's nothing to execute. Okay, download 1 succeeded. So I can kill that if I want. I'll go to embedded IO, and there's nothing to see here. However, if I go to global variables, now you see some red. Whenever you see red like that, that means you're online. Now, let me point out something here. You see these checkboxes? They're not necessarily what you think. For instance, I'm going to turn on an input, and I'll just flip on input 0. And you see that this came up checked. Logical value, physical value. If I turn on input 2, you see that check mark came on. So I'm going to turn them both back off, and I'm going to check this. I'm going to click here. You see it goes right back off because it gets overwritten by the actual state of the input. However, if I go up here and click on that with my mouse, my output came on the controller. So see, I'm actually doing something online now. That's the LC10 with no program in it, and I downloaded, build a program, and downloaded. Now I'll be honest with you, this software, at least the end of 2018, in fall here, It's still got a few bugs in it. Now, they shouldn't be a problem. What I had to do was, because I had, so to speak, bounced around so much with RS links and connecting, disconnecting, somehow I trashed it, and I had to turn the power off to the controller, close CCW completely, open it back up and go back to where I was at, hit download, and here we are. That's enough for the 810. However, notice right here, I can click here and change it to the program mode. Now it's in the program mode. So if I went into global variables, it's no longer updating the inputs. Notice that I can check the input 0. It stays checked. And by the way, this is still checked, but the output isn't on. So the processor is not executing those 4 steps that I showed you. It's not reading inputs and updating outputs. Otherwise, this output would be on my actual controller. It might be on here in the data table, but it's not being sent out. And here, they're not reading in the inputs. Otherwise, it would immediately change that back to off. And I can prove that by going back here, hit run, and right back to here. See? And they changed. Let's move on to a different controller. Now we're back to no controller. So I'm going to create a new project, and I'll just call it 820, because we're going to do so project underscore 820, controller 2080 LC 2020 QBB. That means it has 20 embedded I/O, probably 12 and 8. 12 inputs and 8 outputs. Now this says version 11. Remember, the L10 said version 7. So I always pick the highest rev level, and then if I need to flash the firmware, I flash the firmware. Don't worry about that for today. So I'm going to add it to the project, and now you come up and you see what an 820 looks like. It's a controller because it has embedded I/O, that's the screw terminals, and then you can add 2 additional I/O modules. You also see much more in terms of the controller properties here. Here we've created an instance of a Micro820. We don't need to actually create any programs or any variables to download it. We're just going to, connect and download it as a blank project. So I could do build or just download. Now we've not connected to this controller yet, so we still have yet to establish that connection path. You see right now it shows no connection path. I have my USB cable plugged into the front of the HMI, the little human machine interface, which is wired into the LC20. Now in the manual I have a picture of this hardware configuration that you can look at. You're not going to see it here because it's not going to show you that HMI. However, I have a blank project that I want to download, so I could hit build, then download, but I'll just hit download because it's going to build anyway. But remember, we have no connection path, right? So it's going to come up and want you to define the connection path. Notice that you do not see an LC20. What you see is the 2080 REM LCD underscore 13 DF1. It sees the remote LCD, the little HMI, the little screen. It's completely separate piece of hardware, and it sees the 820. So you click there. Now you can say OK. Thinking, thinking, thinking. And still thinking. Download overwrites the project in the controller with the current project contents. That's just a standard warning. Click on download, because we don't care. We have nothing here that we're trying to save. I'm just trying to get you started in looking at the 810 and the 820. So progress bar, downloading project. Download is complete. Change the controller to remote run to execute controller project. And now we are in almost. Download, one succeeded, and we're in the run mode. With this particular controller, we can actually go online, but we don't have any program. So this is really all that I wanted you to see. If I open up the global variables, you're going to see a lot more I/O, because remember that this has, it's a LC20, which means that it has 20 I/O. Now here I see 0 through 6. I see 7 outputs, and then I see 12 inputs, and then I also see some analog inputs and a single analog output. So there's 8 outputs. See up here's number 6. If I scroll back up, so for outputs you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7. If you go down here to the bottom, then you have an analog output 0. That would actually be the 8th output. And then you have these inputs 0 through 11, which is 12. And the first 4, 0 through 3, can be shared as analog inputs. So this looks very similar. If I turn on one of those outputs, if I click on it, I see the light comes on my digital field device simulator. So that's the 820. Now there's probably more that we could talk about because there's much more to the 820. If I scroll down here, you see there's much more here. Also it shows plug-in modules right here, but they're empty. So if I added plug-in modules, and that is if I actually had them, then they would show up here. If I go to embedded I/O, you see something very similar to what you saw with the LC10. I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to go to one more controller, an 870, and go through the same process. I'm going to close this, and if it had asked me to save it, I would have said no, but it was already saved as project_820. I'm going to create a new project, but before that, I'm going to pause and then connect to the 870. Here we are. We have no project. Let's try Discover to see what we get. Discover. I see USB. I see a Micro870. Now I'll expand that just to see if there's anything there. Shows the backplane, shows channel 2, but this is what we want right here. Okay. It's creating the project with an instance of the datatype Micro870. And this, of course, has a lot more power than the 820. Now, I already had a path created. It literally, when I created the project, it went and it looks like it's connected. See? I didn't mean for it to connect. I just plugged it in. And when I created the project, it went and connected itself. Interesting. So there's an 870. And it actually, what it did was it went online with the program. Look, I've got all these programs in here. So I'm going to go back offline by disconnecting. And I'm going to say new. Because remember, we didn't pick it. I didn't even know it was going to do that. I just plugged it in and I was expecting to start a new project. But it literally found itself and went online with it. So we want an 870 and we want the QBB. Select. Add to project. And there it is. Now, see, there's no connection path. When I plugged in with this software open, it literally just went online with that controller. That was a surprise to me. I'm going to say download, and it comes up basically and said download to what? Click on USB, click on the controller, say OK. Download. change the mode. Download, one succeeded. So now we're connected and we're in the run mode. And you see it says connected here, and here it says disconnect. So this isn't the state. It's implied because it says disconnect, which means that you're connected. So you could do something from either spot. So there you have the 870. We'll close this. You know, we have some things down here that we didn't have before. We've also got Ethernet. I didn't look at Ethernet on the 820 even though we had it. And see, I don't show any configured Ethernet. And you don't want to obtain IP address automatically using DHCP. If you were going to configure and use Ethernet, you would want to check this. However, you can't do that online. Let's see if you can do it in the program mode. Yep, it'll let you do it in the program mode. So I'm not going to configure the IP address right now. This basically concludes the introduction to Connected Components Workbench with the Micro800 controllers. So it's just an introduction. If CCW with Micro800s is the way you're going to go, then when the next video appears, you can go on with that. I want to warn you right now, though, if you're watching this video free, it may not always be free, and the next ones may not be free. I didn't say that in the past, and then when they weren't free anymore, I got complaints because they weren't free. However, if you happen to have a copy of the manual, then you probably have access to the videos, unless this product is aged enough where we've got to the point where the videos aren't available as part of the manual anymore. I'm only saying this all up front because I cannot go back and edit all of these videos to correct that information. I'm just warning you up front. It may be free right now on YouTube, or you may be paying for it. Or you may have even purchased the jump drive, you know, the thumb drive, the memory stick, and you're watching the video on that. So, thank you. We're going to continue this discussion in the next video. The first one got longer than I expected. It's up to an hour. That's way too long. So we'll go to another separate video and we'll continue talking about the Micro800 hardware before we get into the more specifics of programming.